Hi guys, I'm jumping on totally impromptu to talk to you briefly. You can check, last night we had a live stream workshop. This is me in my wrinkly shirt. I want to talk to you about something about learning and art and expression and stuff like that. Something a lot of you may not know is that many years ago, after I'd been teaching at Parsons for 5 years, I had a baby in September. Actually, my first day of teaching music together, I'll tell you about that in a minute, was on September 11th, like the famous September 11th. My son was born September 18th, but I started teaching music together. So that's like a mommy and me program. I had never heard of it before a year before that. And here's the thing, we had to do this very, very intensive training. And the philosophy of that program changed my life in regards to parenting, in regards to how I treated myself and how I viewed. I'd already been teaching art and design for 5 years, and I'd been an art student, and I am a musician. So what we learned about early childhood development and arts was extremely valuable. I don't even know how to start talking about it, but that's why I just press play here and I wing it. So here's the thing. In learning Mommy and Me, we're creating a program that's for early childhood, like birth to age 4, but even up to 6-year-olds would come to class and stuff. But you're also creating an experience that involves caregivers. They might be parents, they might be mommies, they might be nannies, they might be dads, they might be uncles. It could be anything, okay? So the beautiful brilliance of this program at the Center for Music and Young Children is that they trained us to learn so much about how children grow musically. Not just music, like that's movement, that's music, that's hearing pitches and rhythms and tones. Like we learned so much about that, but also about how the caregiver's influence impacts the child's development and the child's attitudes towards things. Right? And a very, very popular word we used a lot was modeling. Oh, this is very, very interesting. I'm curious to see what's going to fall out of my mouth right now. Okay, so a big thing is modeling. So for example, so rich. Okay, in Music Together, we would always hold our classes in a circle. So already this is totally different than the way we grew up, where you have a lecturer in the front of a classroom, or right, and a bunch of students sitting in desks at a chair, or like a church, or like someone in the pulpit and everyone's sitting down below. We sit in a circle, so it's a community. Everybody is part of the experience. The energy is in the middle of the circle, and we're all kind of looking out for each other and interacting with each other, which is also huge, the concept of a circle. That comes up a lot in my classes as well, especially drawing classes, especially live, but that's another story we'll get into. Okay, so the other aspect is that the caregivers were children once. Okay, so if children see you saying, Johnny, why aren't you clapping with the song? Lily, why aren't you dancing? We're supposed to dance now. Jimmy, we're supposed to wave the flags now. Why aren't you? Okay, there's a lot of things going on when we do that. One is, if you're telling them to do it and you're not doing it, how do they interpret that, right? So like if you want your child to practice piano or practice drawing or sing out loud at a holiday event or anything, you want them to enjoy drawing or enjoy reading or anything, it's really interesting when we want our kids to do things they don't see us doing. That's just one thing, okay? And what happens also is there's a whole layer of reasons why we don't do it. Okay, so maybe we don't do it because we just don't like to. Maybe we don't do it because we're traumatized. Okay, so there's that whole other layer where a caregiver may not do the thing that they want their kid to do. And you got to ask yourself why. Oh, because maybe the parent always wanted to do that thing and got discouraged. Or maybe they think the kid doing that thing means something about them. Well, it does mean one thing about you is that you value that thing. It means that you value that thing, whether you do it or not. So if you do or don't do it yourself, that's worth examining. You may not do it because you were discouraged. And this is the other layer, is that the adults in the learning experience of the young child have their own traumas or predispositions or attitudes about art. And it doesn't just have to be music and movement. This could be painting. This could be politics. Like I remember I grew up in a house where no one ever talked about politics. So I always felt like I was illiterate, and a lot of people feel that way about music. Some people never got to touch a musical instrument. I know that even though I grew up in a musical family, I could touch the piano, but I didn't have a guitar. I didn't have any instruments. And instruments were so valuable. I never got to touch any. And that sets up a vibe too. Some of us, this also goes with our preconceptions about money or, all kinds of ways that we see ourselves and what we believe is possible for ourselves come from the past, and we pass them on and stuff. And all I'm saying is to be aware. And I haven't even gotten to the point that I want to make today. So I'll take a deep breath. Okay. So this isn't just about kids learning art. This isn't just about adults growing up learning art, because we're all kids once. And so we are in this loop. We are in this cycle, whether we have kids or not. We are in this cycle of you can do this, you can't do that, you should do this, you're talented at that, or you're not talented at that. There's all of these layers of beliefs that are impacting our pure desire to do something, and then whether we hit a wall or whether we just do it. So in the example of children, if you want your kids to do something, the most important thing you can do is do it yourself. That's the most important thing you can do. If you want your kids to enjoy music, if you want your kids to dance, it makes very little sense to go to parties and go to classes and things and expect them to dance while you sit in a chair and never dance. Right? That's like the A of the ABCs. If your kids are going to pick up more on what you do, what you model, than what you say you want or you say you believe in. So show it, do it yourself. How you do? Here's the piece I wanted to talk about today. Please ask me questions. I just when this stuff comes, I get so moved. I just tidal wave and it's a mess. So let me know if you have questions or responses to anything I just said. And I'm going to get to today's message, and I will talk more about the things I tried to talk about today in another session. So the thing I want you to think about, both in terms of children and both in terms of yourself, because there's really no difference. We love to separate the child from the adult self, but everything about us being a child is playing out in our adult self. And so, one of the most beautiful things I learned when I was teaching music and movement for early childhood, and let me clarify, it's not teaching, it's providing an experience. It's providing a buffet that they can take from. Because I never want anyone to think that I am pushing something into their energy field. I want them to be self-motivated to open and receive it. The difference between authority and force, as opposed to self-directed, self-motivated curiosity and motivation. Because I always want students, children, clients to remember that the motivation is from them. The purest, truest, most powerful motivation is from them. not from me, not from my goals. It's from you. You know, you are the force that leads it. Because, and the reason I make that super clear is because I think after so many years of schooling, we start to actually believe that we are inherently lazy, we are inherently unmotivated, and not good at this and not good at that. And the fact is that we have been spending all our time doing the things that we were forced to do and thought we were lazy because we didn't want to do them. But the fact is, when you're doing what you were born to do, you will work your nose to the grindstone, and it doesn't even seem like work. It's like that energy renews and generates and fulfills itself. Like me talking right now, I'm just like, I'm not even here anymore. I could talk all day about this, and I don't care if I get paid. I don't care. I like, it's too sincere, it's too real, it's undeniable. And that's how it's a great way to create and to be in the world, because we're all born with motivation. We all want to serve. We all have gifts. It's a myth to think that we really just want to hide out and eat ice cream all day. We'll do that for a week, especially if we're reacting to a life where we've been forced to do a million things that we don't want to do all the time, all the time, all the time. But once we start swinging back into our own zone, we're only going to want to sit on the sofa eating ice cream for a few days. And then we're going to start moving out in the world again. Thank you. And thank you for your comment. And thanks for stopping by. And I still didn't get back to the actual juice that I wanted to talk about today. So thanks for reminding me, because I want to make sure I get to it. So I'll get to it now. I think I will. One of the coolest things I learned in those classes was this, and it's true, I see it all the time. This is true for early childhood, but I want you to think about yourself at the same time that I tell this story. Think of yourself in anything you're learning or acquiring, or even, okay, is debt. Okay, a kid in a class does whatever. A teacher seeing a child in a class wants to control that child. In this mommy and me kind of environment, we're in a circle and there's parents with the children. So every one of those parents is sort of judging what their kid's doing. It's compulsive. It's because that's what our parents did and that's what our teachers did. And the very fact that we are in a learning environment sets us up to feel like certain things are supposed to happen and our kids are supposed to be these little robots that please us. So let's say we're all banging on the drum to the beat of this song, and your kid is either not banging on the drum or is banging in a way that you think is inappropriate, too loud, too soft. They're using the wrong end of the stick. They're don't seem like they're in the rhythm at all. Anything that you judge brings up so many feelings, because we are so shame driven and shame based. We are so afraid that we're doing it wrong, or we're so used to living this way. Okay, so thing is, well, at least the kids drumming there, a lot of the kids, they don't even care. Okay, they're very young. The class is 45 minutes long. Kids as well as adults are not going to be intently paying attention the whole time. It isn't possible. I don't know when we started thinking that it was. You know, someone expected that. No one ever said that that was something that we could even do. And conversely, when we're in school, God forbid you even get into something, then the bell rings and it's time to instantly be interested in something else. I can't remember if it was John Holt or John Taylor Gatto who talk about that in the homeschooling. You know, be interested in history. Ding! Okay, be interested in math. Ding! Be interested in... I was like, how natural is that? And are you doing it to please your teacher? For your well-being? I don't know. And get graded on it? Or penalized? Okay, still haven't gotten to the juice. So the kid, the thing is happening. Like we're doing a drumming song and your kid isn't even drumming. Your kid and probably some other kids. And some of them are newborns or babies, whatever. Your kid's running around, or your kid is like stealing someone else's drumstick or playing with the bells when they're supposed to be playing with the drums, and you're getting super uncomfortable. What do? Now, there's a lot of things you can do. One is that you can keep playing your drum, which is really good modeling for your kid. You can have some faith in the process, trusting the process, and getting all these goosebumps. Your child may look, some days, especially with young children, they could look like they didn't pay attention to the whole freaking class that day. Or it could be that they paid some attention, then they kind of tuned out, and then they kind of came back. But what we need to know is it's okay. And that the more you force and push and force that kid, get back here, sit back down, I said come here, look at all the other, what's wrong with you? They start to get this whole split inside of themselves. Here's what I want. Here's what's wrong with me. Here's what, music sucks. Music is stressful. There's a right way. There's a wrong way. I'm supposed to be interested and I'm not. And you wonder why you're such a complex adult. These are all like traumas, the micro traumas that create the adult we are, that is so split in so many fragments is the word I hear, or parts. And they're all kind of warring with each other. We'd love to be unified in our knowledge of ourselves and our authenticity of being true to ourselves, instead of having like 20 conversations all arguing about what actions to take and what do we believe. So, still didn't get to the juice, which is that kid who looks like they're not doing anything. To train your eye, train your ear, train your knowing, your instinct to know 99.999, that's my own statistic, % of the time, that does not mean that child is not learning. And when you sit down to sketch and you do 10 sketches and you hate all of them, that does not mean that nothing happened. Like, how foolish to think that it's all for nothing, because what happens 2 hours later? You're at the supermarket, and if you've trained your eye, oh, hi, this has been such a good talk. It looks like you just got on. Oh my gosh. So you may not know where we're at, but this one means a lot to me. 2 hours later, you're at the supermarket, and the kid suddenly hums 4 notes from one of the songs earlier, or is tapping on the shopping cart at the supermarket, and it's that beat. Or, like, learning doesn't always look like learning. And that's the point. We become these great actors. Do I look like I'm learning? Do I look like I'm interested? Am I showing instant results to the input that has been presented to me? Like, what are we, a machine? In, out, in, out. Well, yeah, but it actually happens so unconsciously and so naturally and so inevitably. So we naturally grow. We are exposed to influences and information and experiences, and we are not cut off just because we're not proving to everyone that we are engaged at the moment. And with children particularly, they see you do something. Oh, they see. And you too, when you're studying, when you're learning something, you're hearing the words, you're watching the movements, you're trying yourself, and you say, oh, I got nowhere. I'm nowhere. I'm worse than I was a week ago. One thing I learned after I graduated college was that my drawings kept getting better even when I didn't draw for a few years. My singing, my ideas about music, they got better even when I wasn't doing it. You immerse yourself, you surround yourself, you fill yourself, you have experiences, and the less tense and frightening and horribly traumatizing those experiences are, the more that we can just trust that our children and ourselves are intelligent, naturally serving, naturally valuable, malleable, intelligent, divine beings, always moving forward to their best capability. The more we believe that, the more it's true. Because otherwise, what do? We keep criticizing them and frightening them and pushing them this way and that way. It's so hard for me when I work with children and even adults, because I know it's supposed to look like this. It's supposed to, I want results. I want to see. But particularly around the arts, which I consider expression of your truth and yourself, it can be when you start creating a lot of tension around that. Like I just can't. Like it doesn't feel right. The most important thing is that the expressions flow out of a space that is clear and clean and self-propelled. Or at least in my world, it's that self-propelled movement forward and self-propelled discovery. Supported, but each one of us has a different blueprint about how we move in the world and what makes us go deeper into things. So glad to see someone who understands children and the importance of self-expression. Oh, hello, beautiful mirror. Because in a way, I feel like that's all I care about. Because in our early childhood, we are so quickly molded and shaped and controlled by other people's insecurities and other people's rules. But the worse yet, the insecurities, right? And other people's traumas, because we will pass them down. We'll either pass them down or we'll swing so far the other way that we're probably traumatizing them in the opposite direction, Like I think about, I don't know, certain things that, for example, traumatize me is like that parent who like pushes the kid into the pool when the kid's like, no, like that can work and it cannot work. I mean, life is life, right? But when you think about what goes on there, like if they have to go in the water, like how do you find that balance between safety and trust? And teaching them to swim so they will be safe. But then at what point is it necessary to like make them finish their dinner or push them into the water when they're absolutely horrified? Like, at what point are we creating a trauma that works in the opposite direction? And sometimes it's very unconscious why we feel the way we do about. So one is to just think about, for example, how your parents and your caregivers and your leaders and teachers and stuff, how they treated arts, how they treated expression, your parents, and then yourself, and think of the child inside yourself. And then if you are working with children, I just got a voice by saying, butt out. Provide the space, provide the tools, provide your own love of enjoying those things, and let them see you enjoy those things, and invite them to show those drugs. But at some point it turns dark and scary and ugly, and you're like fighting with the kid, and as if they were inherently bad. And why do we do that? Is because that's what we learned about ourselves. Let me read this. I'm involved in therapeutic work with children for many years, and I agree 100%. How did you find this cast? How did you even know? Oh my gosh, you just made my day, Pat, because I don't know why I came on. I didn't title this. I just started talking, and you are doing therapeutic work with children for many years. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna close with this. A few years ago, I had to learn a song in Portuguese by Milton Nascimento called Bola de Meia. It's called A Ball Made of Socks. And in the lyrics to the song, he says, there's a boy, there's a kid, há menino, há moleque, morando sempre no meu coração. Toda vez que a tutu balança, menino me dá a mão. That's awesome. I'm so glad you're here, and I message me anything. I want to know more about you. Says, every time the adult gets shaky, this little child inside of me takes my hand. It says, there is a past, há passado no meu presente. Sol bem quente lá no meu quintal. It's no accident we found each other, right? Toda vez que a bruxa me assombra, menino me dá a mão. And that means there's a past in my present, a shining sun in the backyard. Every time the darkness comes, that little boy takes my hand. Okay, and then you get to the chorus. It says, e me fala das coisas bonitas que eu acredito que não deixarão de existir. Amizade, caráter, bondade. It's like, and that child tells me of all the beautiful things that exist and that will never stop existing. Friendship, I think it says character, courage, friendship, love. And then he says, eu não posso, não quero, não posso, não quero viver nesse jeito que todos. Okay, I haven't sung this in a long time. He says, I don't want. I refuse to live in this world where people let a bad thing happen. Bola de meia. And honestly, I could describe it so much better since I haven't sung it in a few years. I am going to message it to you. Okay? Bola de meia, bola de gude. So it's a sock ball and marbles. And it's about, for me, this song, as I was learning the words, I was like, oh my God. No accidents. This song is about that child inside of you that you were too scared to be when you were little, right? Like, is still in there, and now you're big and strong and tough and you've been around in the world. That child is now here to inform you of everything you need to know about who you are, who you were, and who you are. It's like, you know, they talk about like the inner masculine and the inner feminine. You have to have, you know, both in balance to be in the world. Well, you need your inner child and your inner adult. But so many of us have pushed that child into the shadow because, you know, you can't be like this, you can't be like that. Oh, the meaning in these words is so beautiful. I wish I had the recording for you. Oh, wait, can I type it? Let me just see his name. Bola de meia. Bola de gude. Many people recorded it, but it's written by Mil Nascimento. Oh, I actually have a video where I do sing it. I think it's on, yeah, and I talk about the words. I just remembered this, and it might be on IGTV, so I can send it to you. So the message is like, keep holding that little child's hand. Whether it's the child around you, the child in you, keep going back. That's your source. Because you always knew who you were, right? And you reach a point, I remember, you reach a point where you start, I want to grow up, I want to grow up, I want to grow up, I'm going to be older, I'm going to be wiser, I'm going to be bigger, I'm going to be, right? And part of that is because we're pushing that child away because of all the aspects of childhood that make us smaller and authority doesn't allow, right? Or we put that all into our shadow. But at the end of the day, all of those pieces need to come back and be integrated into us. And so that child is such the key to your own healing. And then you're going to behave differently with children. Okay, so especially when it comes to self-expression, and that's why music, arts, people always tell me, like, they don't want to, they're afraid to dance, they're afraid to sing, they're afraid to draw, and when they start, it's ugly. Where do those voices come from, and how much shame do we feel about it, and why? Why would we judge our own, and why would we believe that we couldn't get better and that we aren't learning? And so the real message I wanted to get to today was the one where when you think learning isn't happening, Are you crazy? We aren't stones. Oh, we're learning. We're absorbing all the time. You hear that all the time anyway. But what you might want to notice is, and that's what we often don't notice with children, is that it will come out later. They'll ignore the whole music class, or you'll sketch for half an hour and be like, wow, I suck, let's say. That's how you feel. You gotta notice later that, oh yeah, well, the way you drew is changing the way you're seeing, and it's helping you develop your questions. It's experience. You can't take experience away. You keep being formed by experience. And a child who's not doing what you needed to prove that they were learning is learning. By nature, we learn. We are not lazy. We are not, stupid. We're not like leeches. We want to contribute. We are curious. We are service oriented. We are, okay, I swear I'm gonna close with this. Hi, Dawn. My son used to play so many video games and watch so many movies. And everyone says, oh, the video games, oh, the movies. Bad, bad, bad. You hear parents all the time, oh, kids with the video games. Well, I remember kids I knew who had their nose in a book all the time. You couldn't even talk to them. I'm not sure that it's totally different or not. All I do know is every time I was going to throw out the video games, I would start to pay attention and see, wait a minute, he just filled like a whole notebook with drawings of scenes from the game. He just made sculptures. Like he's singing the songs from the game. Like, we are not robots. We are so afraid becoming robots because we actually felt ourselves being people expecting us to be robots. We are not robots. You take what you experience and you interpret and integrate it. And if you're in a place that feels peaceful or joyful, we tend to say like that's some kind of escapism, or God forbid you aren't suffering all the time. I'm not sure we have any proof that suffering is the only way to learn or get ahead or anything. It just doesn't mathematically compute if you watch and study and look at how much people suffer and whether that equals that they get somewhere, as if any life could be empty. There's no such thing as an empty life. Like, we don't question these beliefs. But yes, I agree. Video games provide an opportunity for imagination and symbolic expression. Ooh. I want to listen to one of your talks. I'm like hanging on your every word. Yeah. I mean, and we judge the kids doing that, and we're like addicted to our phones anyway. Like, can we just let everyone off the hook for a minute and trust that they might have instincts? There may be very good reasons for everything we do and don't do. That we are sovereign. And we have an inner guidance system. And that's what I leave you with today. Because I feel like I went all over the place, and I'm afraid to keep going all over the place. But if you do have children or work with children, you need to know that forcing them down to do that thing and submit to your need and desire, I think it's kind of violent and self-serving. So loosen the grip a little, because they will be teaching you. Oh, they're brilliant. And they know their own gifts. No one was born with it. They know their own interests. They know what they were born for. They do. Just like we do and we did. And yeah, we have to like live in a society and but whenever we have choices, we do have free will. So honor that beautiful thing we were given called free will. I love you. you so much. I'm kind of like all adrenaline up. Does anyone have any questions before I close it out, or experiences or comments? I don't know if Dawn's still here. I'd love to hear about your tambourine, for example, drawing. It's like expression is the opposite of repression, suppression, depression. Those are all symptoms of like energy that doesn't move. Energy wants to move. Everything wants to move and expand. And when it gets stuck, this is where, illness comes from. Hi, Doreen. We should stay in touch. We have so much to talk about. Maybe we could do like a shared kind of podcast, double Instagram, whatever. I would love to hear more about your work with children and expression. And again, we were all a child. There's not one of us who is not a child. Even if we felt like we didn't get to be a child, we were all in those states. So there is no way that there is not a child alive within us. You seem to understand the subtleties of working with children very well. Yeah, well, there's no subtleties if there's 25 kids and like one grown up. It can be so traumatizing for like everyone involved. At least with mommy and me, we had that great web of support within the room. But I've noticed in the past few years, I say I love working with children, and I realize that when it's just me and too many kids, I can't love working with children. I can't be what I need to be or what I want to be to them. And there's a triangle, actually, when working with children or teaching in any way. There's you, there's a student, and then there's the institution or the parent, or maybe sometimes it's even, I like to think of it as a triangle because I know they're way more complex. Square seems too stable. Triangle. So am I pleasing the institution? Am I pleasing the parent? Am I pleasing myself? Am I pleasing the student? And maybe it's not about pleasing, but like, are everyone's needs getting met? And then which needs are aligned with my mission and my philosophy and my truth, and which ones are crossing my boundaries? And then how can I be authentic when I'm split? And we all, so many of us who work with kids, we go with the goal, and then we end up in an environment where we can't possibly be that which we set out to be. But if we were the boss, right, we would create systems. And if we could believe, it's a big thing between doing the work, knowing you're doing the good work, and then proving to everyone else that you're doing the good work. Because proving, it kind of requires those immediate results, when what's more important, what's most important, actually, for children and adults is that self-esteem and getting to know the self, a really strong, healthy, well-developed sense of self. And from my perspective as a child, so much, you're not good enough, you're not doing it right, you need to do it better, you're doing it wrong, you're inherently bad, you need to confess because you don't even know what a bad person you are, because, that's when you get religion and breaking down the self, splitting up the self so that you become so choppy, mixed nuts inside. You hardly have a leg to stand on. So knowledge of the self, self-esteem, kindness, non-violent environment for the selves. I had I had a job where I ended up working in a kid's, it was like the daycare kind of thing that was in a gym, but we were like coaches, so we were doing all these activities with children, and I had some serious therapy after I worked there for a few weeks because I was getting terribly triggered, and I was like, why? And I realized I was being put constantly into environments where I couldn't keep the kids safe. If they were bullying or hitting or anything could be going on, and there was no way I would have been able to manage it. Like if you're looking at one kid, you can't see the 20 behind you, and it just doesn't seem fair. It doesn't even seem natural, right? That children would be extracted from all the adults and thrown into one little place, right? To me, I'm not saying, I mean, I homeschooled my kids, but I'm not saying that makes me better or smarter or anything. I just love to remind people to think about, oh yeah, like when did we start doing that? At what point did the early man decide to like scoop up all the children and put them someplace else? We would have been, rather than investing in expensive college educations, we may have been learning the skills that our parents have. Even things like cooking and cleaning and fixing things and running a household and having relationships with spouses and siblings. Like, I mean, I know things don't always go ideal, but at the same time, we go out into the world and we don't have any skills for those things. We've been in a very artificial environment for a very long time. And then how do we... Okay, so now I'm going down a whole other rabbit hole. But the beautiful point is that we are naturally creative, naturally expressive, naturally intelligent. We are diverse within. Like all this talk lately about, we're so busy with diversity outside, which I was always super into, and now I just don't even talk about it because it's taken so much precedence over letting people be diverse from within. Having conversations with different opinions, this is diversity. Like, scan what up? Oh, that. Yeah, okay. But if we can't accept and love ourselves, how are people going to be accepting and loving of anyone else who seems different in any way? So, that wraps it up. I love you guys. And please comment below the video if you have reactions. I'm going to probably put this up on YouTube or something, and I want to talk a lot more about it. Thanks always for being here with me. And yeah, thanks, Doreen. See you soon.